Welcome back to the BraveCo Podcast, men. Hey, before we get started, I want to ask you one quick question. Do you have a really clear plan to build a strong, capable, powerful leader that God's called you to be? If you don't, we have the course for you. It's our BraveCo Foundations of Masculinity and our Sexuality and Relationship course. These are free courses that we've created that you can literally go and sign up today. The best part of these is you get access to our community, right? So you can go, and if you want to run with other men who are crushing it in life, there's tons of guys there that you can jump into a course with, or we even have conferences and events that we do all year long that you can check out. But listen, I want you to go back and think about this. If you don't have a clear plan, if you don't have other guys that you're running with, if you don't have a clear pathway to how do I grow myself as a man? How do I step into my calling? What is my code, my ethos? What does it mean? How do I set healthy boundaries? How do I show up for my wife? How do I do emotion-based communication that creates deep connection in my family, in my marriage? Guys, we lay it out so simply for you. And honestly, I've seen so many men go through this and get complete healing on the other side. So we want to give that to you for free. You can go to braveco.org and sign up today. I think the most transformational moment in a boy's life is when he feels welcomed into manhood by a father. And it's something that probably you wanted your father to do, or you wanted another man to do, but most men haven't had that happen ever. And it's really been a missing piece of our society, something that our society was really built and born on. But because of that, we have a whole bunch of men who are growing old, but they're not growing up. Right? They don't feel capable, they don't feel confident, they've never been welcomed. And it becomes this incredible, painful, giant missing hole in our lives as a man. The beautiful thing is that we get to give that opportunity to the men around us, to the young men around us. Last year, we built a rite of passage into our BraveCo conference because we believe so much in welcoming young men up to being grown men. And it's a 3.1 mile Tough Mudder course. We thought it would be great. We thought that it would be exciting. But what actually happened was it was the most transformational thing that we did all week for both the young men and the grown men. It's one thing as a father. I have 3 sons. It's one thing for me to welcome my son into manhood. It's a whole nother thing for him to be amongst grown men, heroes that he looks up to, maybe a man that he just met at the conference, and have that man look at him and say, you can do it, and welcome into manhood. This year, we really want to continue to build upon that. And when I was thinking about BraveCo 2025, honestly, I felt the Lord say, Jay, 300 young men. 300, that's what you're supposed to go after. I really feel, men, that we're supposed to gather the young men. Go gather a boy who doesn't have a father present in his home. Go gather your son and his friends and bring him so that we can actually reverse the curse that's been on our lives of men who haven't been initiated. All this pain, we get to welcome these young men in and prepare them for this season ahead. So men, I'd love for you to pray about it, but mostly, honestly, I'd love for you to take action, to step up, to look at who are the men, the young men that I can bring, that I can impact, that I can make a difference. So look back in history and go, it was June 11th, 2025, when everything changed in my life. Guys, would you please join us for the BraveCo conference? Welcome back, everyone, to the BraveCo Podcast. This week, I'm excited to announce that we are officially launching a 6-week marriage series, and our series is going to be really cool. I meet with and talk with a lot of men who are high capacity men, running at full speed, and all of us men want a successful, healthy life. And a massive part of having a healthy, successful life is having a marriage that you love. The challenge is a lot of us weren't taught how to lead a marriage well and how to do marriage well. And I'll tell you, if you are in marriage and you don't know how to successfully lead your marriage, how to show up for your kids, how to balance, if you can, work and marriage life, how to be a spiritual leader in your marriage, how to lead your sex life. Like all those areas create an incredible dynamic in your life and in your relationships. And if you weren't taught well, then marriage can be this like really challenging place in your life that often as men we want to run from or hide from or get so busy in work that we don't have to show up and all those things that we do. But I want you, I want to give you what was given to me when I was young. I want to give you the instruction, the teaching. I want to take my years of experience from counseling, from coaching. I want to pull in some awesome men and women to help bring some experts in and give you guys tools and keys to lead a marriage that you're really, really proud of. And so this week I have probably one of the most impactful men who I have looked up to in my life, especially when it comes to counseling and all the work that I've done as a pastor. We have an incredible guest, Dr. Henry Cloud, on our show today. In Dr. Henry Cloud's books have, I mean, transformed millions of people's lives. I actually say all the time, I'm not just saying that because he's here. I say all the time, the book that every single human being on this planet should read is the Boundaries book, because boundaries affect every single day of our life. We use them all the time, but most people use them as a way to build walls to keep people out instead of a way to actually build healthy relationships and keep people in. And so the transformational work that Dr. Henry Cloud has produced over, decades has just been incredible. And so to have you on the show, Doctor, to give us your wisdom, your insight, but also to launch this marriage series is, yeah, it's so incredible. I'm really, really thankful that you've decided to come on here today. Thank you so much.
Well, it's good to be with you. Followed you guys from afar for a long time, and it's been a great thing to sit back in the stands and just watch.
Come on, man. I appreciate that. Well, today we're really going to focus on leading a marriage well. And I know that how long have you been married, Dr. Cloud?
This year we will celebrate 30 years.
That's awesome. And then how many kids do you have?
We have two girls. They are 22 and 23 and 25 now.
Come on, man. That's great. Yeah, kids are the best.
Yeah.
I've been married. I was married twice, and my first marriage, I was married for 10 years, and then my wife left.
Now, you didn't do that at the same time, right?
No, I don't recommend. I don't recommend that.
Sometimes where Paul says elders should be a husband and one wife, and people argue about the theology of that. And I go, I don't know, but I think he was saying, because if you got more than one,
it's gonna be tough.
You ain't got time for the church.
It's gonna be tough, man. Yeah. No, I was married for 10 years, and my wife, she left. She ended up having an affair, and so I was a single dad for 5 years. And so, yeah, it's tough, man. For all those single dads out there, man, my hat's off to you. It's a hard job. But I got remarried.
You know what?
Go ahead.
Well, I always say, and this kind of gets into what we're going to be talking about, but I have a special kind of, I don't know, just affinity for, especially single mothers.
Yeah, I agree.
Because of what we're talking about today, the role of a dad is so important that when all of that falls on her, it's
impossible.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Which speaks to us today about how important it is for what a man does in the home.
Yeah, it's real. It is, man. It really is. And we're going to dive deep into that today. Having gotten remarried. I got remarried in 2011. And so Lauren and I have been married we're going on 14 years this year, blending a family. So there's a lot of men in here that you're watching this. You've never been married. Awesome. You want to watch a podcast on how to lead a marriage well before you're married. That's a great setup. If you're married and and you're wondering, man, how do I lead well? Or you're blending a family, it's great because we've got you all covered in it. But one of the things, doctor, that I've just seen over and over again is every man really wants to feel powerful. They want to lead their marriage well, but the role of a man, the role of a father has been so abandoned the last, for 30, 40, 50 years. The fatherless statistics are just astronomical in our nation and other nations right now. And so we know that.
And the fatherlessness that goes on in homes where he's actually in the house.
Exactly. Dad's home, but he's not present it's massive. So when it comes to marriage and in the role that a man's supposed to play, in the 40s and 50s, 30s, 40s, 50s, like a son could grow up and watch his dad lead the home. And whether or not that was a perfect environment, at least you had a dad that was showing up, that had values and virtues that he was living by for the most part. In today's day and age, most men aren't getting a really good picture on what it looks like to lead a family well, to be a present dad, to show up in marriage. So I'd love to just start off of like, what does it mean for a man to lead in marriage?
Oh gosh, there's so many directions we can go in that. It's interesting. I'll start by saying this: a lot of guys, I hear this a lot of times because I work with CEOs and businesses a lot, and business people, and they'll often say, you know what, I'm killing it at work. Everybody loves me, and
Yeah.
and we're just doing so well. He said, but at home, I'm losing. I feel like I'm losing, and I'll say, okay, so let me tell you something. If you're killing it at work, you already have all the skills that it takes to lead at home.
Mm,
You're just not doing it because you think they're different. Now, hang with me for a second.
I like that.
What do you do at work? You start out, what does a leader do at work? You start out with a vision.
Yeah.
What are you trying to build here? And you start out and you got to know, where are we headed? What are we trying to build? What kind of marriage do I want? What kind of family do I want? And then what do you do in your business? Well, you got the vision, and then you sit down with your team and you engage the talent.
Yeah.
And everybody understands this is what we are trying to build together. And everybody's got a role. Everybody's got something that they bring to the party. And you engage the talent, and then you got a strategy and a plan. There's stuff we got to do and activities we got to build in if that vision is going to become a reality. And they have some sort of way of measuring that and holding each other accountable. And then when problems arise, when we hold ourselves accountable, we fix what we find and adapt next week. You already know how to do this. You do it all the time.
I really
So
love that.
let's just do that. Let's do that at home.
I love that. I honestly do. It's a really great way to reframe, like a different way to look at marriage and the role and for a man. I think one of the challenges maybe that we could look at is at home, right? At work, I can show up and people listen to me because I'm paying them. Now, obviously, that's the first level of leadership is you do what I say I'm going to do because I'm paying you. And we want to, as Maxwell would say, like work our way up through those different levels of leadership. But at home, I think one of the challenges for a man is that nobody has to listen to him because he ain't paying anybody. And I think as a man, if a man uh, doesn't confront his insecurity, doesn't confront his uh, the areas in his life that are painful, then that shows up in the relationship, right? So an inability to communicate well at home looks totally different than your inability to communicate at work. A little, I think a little bit, because you're always in that in that marriage dynamic of, so how are you, I guess, a bit like, how are you helping guys work through the areas in their life where they're feeling insecure? They they don't feel like they have clear vision, or they don't know where to lead their family. Like, how are you helping guide them in that?
Well, first of all, we got to kind of find out, where's the gap?
Mhm.
Here's where we want to be, and here's where we are. And so, we look at either you're not able to do that, or you don't know what it is, or a lot of times you're doing it, but some voice in your head is telling you that you're failing
Yeah.
and not good enough. And so I think it's really important that we start out by, let's just define reality, and kind of, how you're showing up and how you feel like you're not doing it well, and where the gaps are,
Mhm.
you know, in your confidence. It's interesting. You you said earlier that, we're not trained to do this. Well, we are, because humans, basically, we are imitative creatures. We learn everything
Yeah.
by what we've seen and what is modeled to us. So everybody that grew up was modeled some kind of father,
Yeah.
either an absent one, a good one, or whatever. And we internalize those patterns, and either we continue to live them out, or we try to live out something in relation to that. Well, I'm not going to be like him. I'm not going to be
Yeah.
like my dad or whatever. Well, that's different than having seen something.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really, really important. This is for single guys. Please, please you need, if you're single, the most important thing you can do for your marriage is to have a close relationship with some family that's got an awesome dad in it, that you're a part of that family. I was fortunate enough to be adopted by a couple of families,
Wow.
when I was single, and they
Wow.
felt sorry for the graduate student or whatever. And you've got to be around good men that you can see what you've never seen. Even if you had a dad,
Yeah.
we need to see what this looks like first. And so I would say, get in some sort of, a spiritual community, or, a family where you're seeing what it is you've got to do. And then you'll know, gosh, I don't know if I can do that. Then you can start to address building the skills that are needed. I think let's go back to what you do at work.
Yeah.
At work, we do 360 reviews,
Mm.
right? We get feedback from our stakeholders.
Yep.
And one of the things that I always did in our family is, we'd have family meetings every Sunday night. And part of that was, we'd go around the table and say, okay, feedback time. What did I do this week that you liked? What did I do that you didn't like? What didn't I do that you'd like to see me do? And the kids would weigh in, and Tori would weigh in. Then we just go all the way around the table. And in that, not only are you getting better, but you're getting good
Yeah.
eyeballs on what you're doing. And what you might find is you're doing a lot of stuff you don't know you're doing that they really love. And that's good to hear too. But it also teaches everybody that we're in a learning environment here.
Yeah.
And if we can establish a place where we're all learning from each other how to be better, that's a really important one too. So I think it's a lot of things like that. There's biblical guidelines.
Yeah.
There's we can talk about all that. There's various skills that are needed. Look, this isn't rocket science,
Yeah.
okay? But it's not automatic either.
Yeah.
And when you look at, what does a father do? What does a husband do? Um, Let me give you a simple little way of looking at this. the most important thing in all of life is built on connectedness and abiding.
Yeah, that's great.
The entire gospel, God came to where we are to resolve a separation. Okay. A father's role, first of all, is to be connected to where you are. Remember the kenosis passage in Philippians 2? He gave up everything it meant to be up there, and he came down to where we are.
Yeah.
And what he did was he connected with us. And so that means incarnationally doing what Jesus did, that you're trying to understand everybody first. You've got to understand, what are your wife's needs? It may not be all of her wants. You got a demanding, controlling wife. We got some other fixes for that. But at least to know, what does she really need? And listen and understand that first. And listen and understand and get really acquainted with what your kids need. And you got to build a connection based on understanding and connecting. That's the first thing you got to do. And then after that foundation, when we build a house, we pour a slab. That's the foundation. That's your attachment to your family. And that's basically going to come from being present and being empathic and being a listener and being tuned into their needs. That's what a good leader does.
Yeah.
But after you pour a foundation, you got to build a frame. And it's so important that a father shows up and is establishing and living out really good boundaries.
Yep.
First of all, the boundary that defines the family. There is a we here.
Yep.
And we're separate from the neighbors, and we're separate from the grandparents, and this is our house.
Yep. Creating that identity.
And those boundaries, it's clear. What do we allow in our house, and what do we not allow in our house?
Mm-hmm.
And that's just that frame. When kids feel, and a wife feels like you're stepping up, and there are things that you're going to stand for, and there are things that you're not going to allow, and you're just showing up. And you don't have to be a tyrant to do that. You just got to say, you know what, that's not okay.
Yeah.
And establishing those handful of values, and what does it mean to trespass? You step over a boundary, that's a trespass. Forgive us our trespasses. And what are those lines? And that you're living those out. And then third thing, when you build a house, you got a frame, but then you got to live in it. So what do? We install an HVAC system.
Mm-hmm.
We got to have, you got to be a thermostat. You got to check the temperature in the house. And when it's getting too hot and too amped up, you got to be able to calm it down. When it's depressed and has no energy, you got to heat it up a little bit. You got to make it comfortable there. There's a plumbing system in the house. So you got to make sure the crap that's getting brought in by life, that you're metabolizing that. You're letting people deal with their hurts and their griefs and their problems, and you're stewarding that. We're dealing with issues. We're getting the crap out, and we're bringing good stuff in. We got to have clean water coming in here. You got to fuel this thing. And then fourthly, after you put all that in the house, then you got to have some skills and talents in there to make everything work.
Yeah.
And so we're always like looking at this. You're the sort of the air traffic control above it all, and you're monitoring how connected are we, how good are our boundaries without being rigid, how much are we metabolizing the bad stuff that gets in here that life brings to us for any member or our whole family, the hurts and wounds and all that. And are we building skills here? Are we developing all of us in collective skills we do together and the individual skills? If you do those things, you are going to be a superstar.
Yeah, it's true. I love how you.
It's interesting. Well, I was going to say, if you look at Ephesians 5, everybody camps out on the submission thing. But before that, there is a big prescription there of, loving her as Christ loved the church.
Yes.
And when you see that, what did he do? He did those things. He came down, he connected with us. He established some clear things that we're going to live by. He dealt with our griefs and sorrows, and he builds us up. He builds us all up to establish our talents and our purpose and all that. And that's just not rocket science.
Yeah. I love how you framed all of that and step by step what it really looks like in the picture of a home. And I really love that you started with the bond and the attachment, because I really do think the question to men is, are you attached to your family? Are you bonded to your family? Because the main the main role for a man, to me, is to protect, to provide, and to promote. And when you start thinking through, like, okay, the protection, the provision, and the promotion, that protection, most guys, when you talk about, the protection, they instantly go to, like, I'm going to get my guns, I'm going to learn karate or jujitsu, and anybody touches my wife's butt, like, I'm going to handle it. Anybody tries to come through my front door, I'm going to take them out. And yeah, that's fine.
Well, those are just permission to play. If you're not doing that,
yeah, yeah,
we're not going to give you a cookie.
that's all good. But really, when it comes to protection, when you think about it, it is that bond. It's that heart level bond. It's, does my daughter believe that she's beautiful because I've told her that she's beautiful? Or is another man going to come in and entice her by giving her something that I should have been giving her in the beginning? Same with my wife, right? I'm protecting my wife's heart. I'm nurturing it. I'm cherishing it the way that Christ did the church, which is part of, if you tear apart that scripture in Ephesians, husbands, love, nurture your wife. It's talking about the way that a mother would nurture a child. Like, I know every detail, and I create this incredible protection in the home through the bond that we've built. And I also love when you're talking about,
and can I say something about
yeah,
that?
please.
I think it's Peter, and I think the words are something like this: respect her as the weaker
Yes.
vessel, but he says, be considerate. I always thought that word meant, okay, I got to be nice or kind. It actually means that you are considering. In other words, you are a student.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to really consider what it is that she needs. When a husband becomes a student of his wife, then you know how to love her.
It's true.
And you know what she needs. But you just can't assume that you know, right?
Well, it goes perfectly, because a woman's greatest need is to feel safe, to feel seen, and to feel known, right? Like, if a woman feels safe, seen, and known, then she's allowed to show up in the relationship and bring to the table what she was designed to bring. If a man comes in and he protects, he provides, and he promotes, so that provision, again, it's not the 9-to-5 job, although that's the baseline. Sure, get a haircut, get a real job, show up, provide money, but you're back in the mode of being able to provide the most basic but essential needs, is that bond, that connection, to feel known, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel understood. That really is the foundation of everything in a home. When a child is born, the foundation for that child is the connection. When a marriage, when husband and wife are married, the foundation is that connection. And so the husband, I think so many husbands forget that their role is to lead in that.
I can just comment.
Yeah, please.
I'm going to make a comment about that, because a lot of times, in the Christian world, we have all this language about, godly this and godly that, and be a godly husband and all this kind of stuff. Okay, great. Look at God.
Yeah.
The number one value that he has is his connection to us, abiding. It's over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
He says, is that not what it means to know me? I desire compassion more than sacrifice. It is the relationship and the trust that comes from that abiding connection that everything else flows out of. So you can talk about all the husband activities we got to do. Those activities without the connection can go from either meaningless to slavery. The 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 connection is where it all. That's who God is.
Yeah,
That's your foundation.
it really is. And I love that you nailed that when you were talking about the illustration of the house, because I think I have a hunch that the reason why most men who aren't succeeding in their marriage don't succeed is because that connection was never modeled for them. They didn't grow up in a home where they experienced that deep connection that is so essential to every part of their life. And you don't necessarily have to be connected on a heart level to lead a business, but you do have to be connected on a heart level.
The best ones are led that way, but you're
I
right.
agree. But you do have to be connected on a heart level to be successful in your marriage. And so I really do think that this is one of the secret components that a lot of men miss. And then what happens is, instead of modeling that and inviting the wife into that, the woman gets put in charge of the emotional connection in the relationship. And now it becomes this massive burden on her. She's trying to keep the kids connected to the father. She's trying to get him to be
Right.
present. And it puts this big load on it. Instead, men, if we could show up and invite our wife into that by making her feel safe, seen, and known, invite our kids into that by being present and consistent and open and vulnerable and honest. And by
Yeah.
modeling that, everything changes.
And you're right in that a lot of times it's because they've never seen it.
Yeah.
But another big problem is, we talk about that they might not have seen it in modeling, but many men have also grown up with mother wounds.
Yes, it's true.
And that gets under examined and under talked about, but it gets lived out every day. I mean, to look at how many times the connection between the husband and the wife fails because he hears everything she is saying through the voice of a critical mother
Yeah.
or some other critical voice in his head. Could be his father,
Yep.
but she can say, can you not leave your clothes on the floor? And he hears, why are you always on my case? And
Yeah.
there's this instant reactivity. And men have got to really get in touch with not being reactive to feedback or criticism or her cries for help or her expression of need. And so many times they're so fear-based in relation to any woman that doesn't idealize them and tell them they're wonderful. That's why they're attracted to the affair, because this one, my wife's always on my case, and all of a sudden this woman comes along and has nothing but adoration. It's really has a lot to do with his wiring of he's hearing everything so critically that he's got to deal with so he can hear her normal feedback or criticisms or whatever as part of any relationship and learn to one of the things I talk about in my book Integrity is that a great leader embraces negative realities.
Yeah.
In other words, when she's saying I need this or I'm not getting this or whatever, what did God do? God moves towards problems. He doesn't move away from them. And so to calm down that, fight or flight or freeze syndrome in relation to her, that's what breaks down the connection a lot of times, is that he amps up too fast.
So if a man is in that dynamic, right, or a woman even that's watching this, they're in that dynamic where feedback is a very, very painful place in a relationship. What would you say
It can be.
Yeah. if they're in that
It
dynamic.
can be if the man has not created psychological safety.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. What would you
Yeah.
say if they're in that dynamic right now? What's his first step for a man to begin to remedy that, or a woman?
Well, I think the first step is to really realize that you may be more reactive than you think.
Yeah.
In other words, that even if you are being, quote, criticized in a negative way,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't mean that you have to lose your freedom and strength and autonomy from that to where you react to everything. A reactive person de facto is out of control. Her criticism, her feedback has now gotten control of you.
Mm.
And now you've lost your cookies.
Yeah.
You can't, everything in the scriptures talks about not reacting to even persecution, even any of that. So the first thing is to acknowledge that and say, you know what, I got to deal with my reactivity. Why am I hearing it this way? And even if it is being said that way, that doesn't mean I got to respond in kind.
Yeah.
And so, that's where it comes to, you might have to look at some wounds inside. You might have to look at the voices in your head. So that's number one. And then one of the things, the most important thing a marriage can have is what I think as Gottman calls this bubble of safety,
Yeah.
this bubble of psychological safety where we have established, you and your wife have established, let's talk about how we can talk about things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and let's talk about the way we talk about things when it doesn't go well. And let's talk about a way that we can talk about things where we get on the same side of the table and the problem's over there.
Yeah.
And if we can have a space where we can put difficult things on the table and we're arm in arm, really trying to understand why they feel that way without gaslighting it, negating it, invalidating it, whatever. There's a reason they feel that way. It may be in their own head or it may be something you're doing, but there's a reason they feel that way. Then you become your teammates in a safe bubble where you can start to solve problems without reacting. And, that takes some feedback and some,
Yeah.
skills building
Yeah.
but you can learn to do this. I mean, we do this every day.
Yeah.
So
I really love that
really,
because
really important.
that's a really great measurement for a husband is there I do we have that bubble of psychological safety going on inside of our home? Is my wife wondering how I'm going to react when I walk through the door?
Right.
Am I wondering or afraid of what she's going to do if I whatever, if I share what I'm really feeling or what I'm really seeing? And I think that this is one of those areas when you talked about the roof and you talked about, yes, there needs to be connection. Yes, there needs to be boundaries up 100%. But there are areas in our life where we have to tool up, where we have to grow in our ability to navigate from here to here.
You got to tool up without being a tool.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, 100%. Well, you either tool up or you are the tool. So, in one of
That's
those areas of tooling up is the communication, right? Is being able to say, "Hey, I love you. I want to hear what you're saying. I'm really having a hard time hearing the way that you're talking to me right now. Is there a way that you can communicate that doesn't feel judgmental, that doesn't feel like you're blaming me, but where I actually hear your need?" So if a man, that's why honestly, it's why I love your boundaries book so much, because if a guy understands how to deliver a boundary in a way that invites her in, talks about himself, and presents it in a way to protect the relationship, it really is the cheat code. Because now I can be in a place where the psychological safety is being threatened, but I have a tool for that. I have a way to go, hey, I love you. I really care for you. I want this to go well. Can we talk about this instead of each other? Can we talk about that? Or can you explain to me what you need? I can't hear you like this. If a man can learn that, now I can navigate my kids, right? My kids come out, they're angry, they're frustrated. Hey, I'm okay that you're angry. I'm not okay that you're mean. I want to hear what's going on inside of you. And I want to help that. It's probably really valid. The way that you're talking is very, very hard to hear. Can you just share with me what you need? That skill set right there, man, that that Henry has has built for us in the Boundaries book and other books is so vital to leading a relationship. It's so vital to leading a business or a ministry. That tool to me is one of the greatest skill sets that you'd have because it's protecting the foundation. Could you maybe share a little bit more on that? And you've just done such a great job at giving language because I think so many relationships struggle because people don't understand how to use boundaries well, and they really do use it as a battering ram to I'm setting a boundary right now. If you actually have to say I'm setting a boundary right now, you're probably using it wrong. But can you just share a little bit more on that skill set, yeah, and that tool, and how men can use it in a way to like really help to protect the relationships in marriage?
To understand what a boundary is, let's just think about the word. A boundary is a property line. Okay. You have a boundary around your house or your apartment. This is where you end and somebody else begins. And each person in the marriage has their own boundaries because each one of them are people, right?
Yeah.
Even in the closest experience, even when you are embracing your wife, you have a boundary.
Yeah.
It's your skin, right? And boundaries they just to define what's me and what's you. Sometimes, let's say that I had a shot, some sort of flu shot or something. My arm was sore. Tori came up and hugged me, and I went, "Ouch!"
Yeah.
Okay, that hurt. In a hug, that's a boundary.
Yeah.
It's just to say, "Oh, that felt good," or "Oh, that hurt." Okay, you don't have to beat somebody up. You're not trying to control them. You're just if somebody steps on your toe, you go, "Ouch!" Could you not do that? This isn't rocket science. Again, it's just this feels good, that doesn't. Then we have to figure out, you know, where that's what talking about it does. Where's this hurt coming from?
Mm.
Because it may be that the problem is mine. I'm hearing it in a certain way. It may be that she's saying it in a certain way. It may be that she's wanting something. I can't do that.
Mm.
I can't provide that. I can't be at this and this and this all at the same time. But we all, I mean, we need for me to work. We need for me to be home. We need parenting. You need time with me. We got to look at the pie and solve the problem of how do all the stakeholders get what they need? Let's work on this together. But if you're hearing it as some sort of an adversarial relationship, you've lost what's most important.
Mm.
What's most important is, look, we want the same thing. And that's where I go back to the vision. When couples sit down, say, what are we trying to build? What is it we're trying to build together? And just define a few things you're trying to build together, then you can solve the problems of how this isn't helping that and this is helping that. And we need to do more of this and less of this. But you're on the same side of the table
Yeah.
and the problem's on the other side of the table. Instead of you being on opposite side of the table, adversarially forgetting that you both want the same thing.
Yeah. It's so important. My wife and I, we lead marriage intensives, and we just love doing it. It's so much fun. The first thing that we do is we have couples do what you're talking about. We have them build out a vision board of what they actually want their marriage to look like. So take the take the
Mm,
different people that you've seen in your life. So for instance, like I look at my parents and I love how my parents do teamwork. My parents have ran businesses together, they've been in ministry together their whole life, and they do teamwork phenomenal. So my wife and I look at that area of our life and go, okay, that's the model that we want for our marriage. And then I have some friends that they've done family and in church really well. The way that they raise their kids in church and in family and has been awesome. So we have that picture, right? We're building out this vision board of what different areas do we want our marriage to look like. And I think why that's so important is that's what you're always going to be protecting when we talk about the boundaries, right? We're always going to be
that's right.
protecting this vision, and ultimately it's connection. So we find that so many couples, their goal, what they're trying to create is peace. What they're trying to create is a life of safety. And man, we aim missiles at China to create peace. You end up being roommates with your wife or your spouse. But as soon as you go, our goal is a deeply connected marriage where you feel safe, seen, and known. He feels respected, believed in, cared for, and we are going after raising a family that looks like this. All of a sudden, all the tools turn into if you keep it on track, I'm using these tools to get us there, to help us to. So I'm willing to take feedback because I need feedback in order to protect our connection. I'm willing to, compromise, do win-win because, or even sometimes win-lose because it's actually getting us to this connection place. And I think, man, as we're talking about what's your role, back to the first lesson in this 6-week series, is your role really is to lead in providing that safety, that emotional, mental, physical, spiritual safety, the place where the garden can grow and it's not going to come and get pillaged by all that outside stuff. And I just want to tell men, like, the same way that you're,
And it's not gonna have an autoimmune disease where it's getting pillaged by the inside stuff inside the
yes,
house.
yes,
You
it's
have to
true.
be a steward over that as well.
It's true. And I think that this will really help men. I feel like a man is never supposed to stop opening the door for the woman. And what that means is when we all first started dating, we all know as men to open the door. You see it on the movies. Your dad probably showed it to you, whatever. It's a known fact, right? You open the door for the woman, you open the car door for her. And what are you doing? You're actually saying, I'm thinking about you. I am here to make a way for you. Okay, emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, that role never gets stopped. As long as I'm opening the door mentally, emotionally, I'm creating a safe place for her. I'm being curious. I'm seeking to understand. I'm setting some healthy boundaries. I'm painting that I'm leading her to, well, what should our marriage look like? I'm inviting the kids into, hey, what do you want to feel? Hey, give me some feedback, right? I'm never making my family open the door for themselves. I'm always leading that. If you think about that, it'll
That's
really
right.
help you.
Here's a good question to ask her. Here's a good question to ask your kids. I
Yeah.
ask my kids this a lot. What's it like to be on the other side of me?
Wow. Yes, bro. It's it's real.
And sit back and shut up because
Yeah.
you're gonna you're probably gonna hear some stuff.
Yeah,
But it's a really, really, really important question.
it is.
And if we just need to have these discussions, the difference between you, any of us, and my Doberman provides, protects.
Yes.
She provides hilarious time. She provides a lot of love for the family, and she protects, right? And she does it in the way that she's wired to do it,
Yeah.
the way that she's been trained, but she does it only according to the way she's been wired. If somebody comes to the front door, she is the first one there, and she lets them know this is the boundary. And it is a
Yep.
scary moment when somebody comes to the door until, she barks,
Yep.
until somebody goes up there and says friend or foe. If it's friend, her ears go back. She licks them. If it's bad, she would keep somebody out. But the point is, I've never heard her run to the door and bark and then stop and say, I wonder if that was helpful.
I wish my dog would do
Did
that.
I bark loud enough?
Yes.
Did I bark at the right time? And the bigger question, I've never heard her say, I wonder if barking like that will get me closer to where I want to be on Thursday.
Oh, yeah.
That is reserved for a human.
Yeah.
Only our species, created in the image of God, can get above the way we're wired and have a desired future state, a vision, and ask, is my behavior getting me where I want to be tonight or tomorrow or a year from now or 30 years from now? And that's where so many people are living out their wiring, and they're not getting above the wiring. And as God says, observe your ways. And it's so important for men to have a space in your life with some other men, a couples group, you and your wife, you and your family around the table, and not only do the work of the family, but start to work on how you're working. That is what differentiates somebody, as the New Testament says, is living life according to human desires versus you've been called into the light, to become children of the light, to live life towards a higher, a transcendent vision of who he called us to be. And this takes structure. You don't do this on the fly.
Yeah.
The word structure means to build something. A building is a structure. Well, why do we put a lattice up when you're trying to grow some kind of vine or flower or, a vineyard or something? Because it doesn't have in itself what it needs yet to hold itself up on that path. That's why you've got to have structured experiences. Whoever's discipling you, or a group, or a mentor, or something that has a time and a space. Every week we meet and we get above our ways, and we have a structure in our life that's helping me grow into what I'm trying to be. Families need that, couples need that, individuals need that. And without the structure, it ain't going to happen, because you'd already be doing it if you possessed it. So that's what you've got to build into your life in order to get there. It's like your retreats, it's like your programs, all of that kind of stuff. No NFL team recruits the players and says, I'll see you at the Super Bowl.
That's true.
In January. They have structured experiences all throughout the year to build what they're trying to achieve. Life is no different than that.
Yeah. Incredible. Dr. Henry Cloud, for me, it's such a pleasure to have you on here. And I appreciate your wisdom.
I always wanted to come up and visit you guys sometime.
Oh my gosh, please do.
I don't know who I'd be when I came back, because a lot of people go up there and they come back. Their world is very different.
Yeah, well,
but I'd love to.
We would love to have you, and it would be incredible. BraveCo, man, I want you to think about this week. I really do. I want you to ask yourself, what am I providing in my marriage? And am I creating a really incredible place for my wife to give feedback? Am I able for my kids to give feedback? Am I creating that psychological safety, that foundation of connection, and creating a space in which my family can actually thrive? If you're not, there's no shame in it. It's not like, oh, go beat yourself up. It's like, no, let's get a part of a group of men, right? We talk about that so much here. Get a part of a group of men who are doing that. That is the cheat code, is if you can get around a man who knows how to live that life and submit yourself to him, then all of a sudden you have a guy who's there to coach you. If you don't have that, begin to create that in your life. Find a place to serve at church. Find a men's group at church. Do whatever you have to do. Join one of our BraveCo groups. But you really want to this week go, how am I intentionally leading my family into connection? That is the starting point for a healthy marriage. It's a starting point for you being successful in your life as a man leading your family. Guys, thanks so much, and stay brave this week. Hey, BraveCo men. Hopefully you loved this week's episode. Listen, if you have not subscribed to our podcast, you are already behind. Go ahead and click right here to subscribe to our podcast. And if you have not watched last week's episode, you can click right here and watch last week's episode. And listen, if you want to upgrade your wardrobe, you can check out some of our new hats that we have in stock and all our other swag. Go to braveco.org and you can look at our store there. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.